The issue, I guess, that I'll be trying to explore over the next, I don't know, 2 years will probably be about how far right would the Liberal Party choose to go in order to recapture those people that have left to go to One Nation. And I think the issue here is how far, what policies are they going to implement that are going to extend their movement to the point whereby those people that have moved to the right will start to say, well, maybe that was the wrong move at this particular point because we didn't like Susan Lee, because we're misogynist, because we didn't like the direction the party was going, and One Nation seemed to fit that void. Well, I think that the Liberal Party are definitely going to move a little bit further and further to the right. So I've got two posts I want to talk about which came from the ABC, two news articles I want to talk about that came from the ABC, that I think talk about this very issue and certainly gives us some insight into where the Liberal Party are now going to move. They are desperate, to say the least. They know that if they continue along their current path, whatever that might be, that they are likely to be wiped out at the next election. One Nation are likely to certainly get a balance of power in the upper house, and they will be basically irrelevant, along with the Nationals, in the lower house. I'm not suggesting for a moment that One Nation will get enough votes to develop an opposition, perhaps, but they certainly will probably get some votes and some representation within the lower house, which might cause a problem for Albanese and his government. Who knows? Don't know. Don't have a crystal ball. Don't plan to. But anyway, so I'm going to take you to this article and talk about what this article particularly has to offer, because it says that the Liberal Party divided over future directions as Angus Taylor plots right-wing political shift. Now, senior sources have told Four Corners, because clearly Four Corners have done a session on this, which will probably be on TV tonight, the Liberal Party is discussing an immigration approach inspired by a controversial UK Labour policy. It is a part of a broader realignment taking place in right-wing politics in Australia amid the rise of populism overseas. Liberal MPs are divided over whether to overhaul the party's direction or maintain tradition to win back voters who have abandoned them. And this particular article goes through a range of different players within the Liberal Party who have taken specific issues, because the Liberal Party is divided into their moderates and their centrals and their right-wing groupings. So that and Angus Taylor is probably sitting as a moderate, with Hasty perhaps as he's further right of Angus Taylor. Now, what influence will they have? Who knows? It remains to be seen. But the new leader, Angus Taylor, is seeking to unify the party that has already divorced its coalition partner this year, and his elevation to the top job all but confirms the Liberals will shift further to the right in a bid to counter One Nation's surging popularity. A tougher immigration policy is central to his vision as opposition leader, with him declaring on Friday the door must be shut to people who do not align with Australian values. And I guess that's the key to it all, is, back to the same old discussion that I tend to have with you all the time, is what are those values? What do they look like? How will they be implemented? How will we get people to sign a document to say, if you're coming to Australia, these are the list of values that we expect you to abide by. Now, they'd also go in this article say the party is yet to announce any policies, but senior sources have told Four Corners the Liberal Party is actively discussing a controversial approach to immigration inspired by recent UK Labour policy. And I want to take us just in this as we're discussing, I guess, what this policy is supposed to look like. It did appear that Susan Lee had developed a draft policy that may very well become part of this policy. And the interesting thing about this is that what I want us to focus on is whether you believe there's aspects of what this draft policy looks. Now, we don't know whether it's going to be effective or not. We don't know whether it's going to be implemented, whatever. It was only a draft policy, and it was by Susan Lee. So who knows whether they will accept it or not. But the basic concept is that migrants who breach Australian values would be kicked out under Lee-era policy draft. Now, migrants who breach the Australian values statement would face deportation under a tougher immigration policy proposed, but not yet released by the Liberals before Susan Lee was dumped as leader. A leaked copy of the draft policy seen by the ABC outlines plans to elevate the current non-binding Australian values component of all temporary and permanent visa applications, making compliance with the statement a condition of being able to stay in Australia. The value statement, which is signed by all temporary and professional visa applicants, is designed to signify understanding of core principles to Australian society like freedom of speech, religion and association. And I don't know, and I'd be interested to know what you think about getting people to sign an agreement, I guess, with the state or with the country or with the government that they're going to abide by freedom of speech, religion and association, because part of this agreement tends to make kind of sense to me. I don't know about whether we need to get people to sign an agreement such as this, because there are many Australians born here who are Australian citizens who I don't think necessarily abide by some of this shit. So if, should they be kicked out of the country if they don't abide by what this particular draft policy is telling us? Well, it says, respecting Australia's parliamentary democracy, equality of opportunity for all people, regardless of their gender, sexual orientation, age, disability, race, or national or ethnic origin is also in the statement. Now, to me, that raises a really interesting question, because some of those issues that they're talking about are part of the so-called woke agenda. So they're getting people to agree that regardless of their gender, regardless of their sexual orientation, it could be LGBTQI plus, whatever, their age, disability, whatever that might mean, mental disability, physical disability, whatever, race or national or ethnic origin is also in the statement. So they're asking us to agree that regardless of all of those issues, that they should be abiding by respect and understanding. So one of the other things they do mention here is just that. As an explanation of the concept of a fair go for all, which embraces mutual respect, tolerance, and compassion for those in need. Sorry, I meant to bring that up. So that's what it says. As an explanation of the concept of a fair go for all who embrace mutual respect, tolerance, and compassion for. Now, I don't disagree with that notion that we should embrace people with, and I've argued this forever. Mutual respect, tolerance, compassion for those in needs. So, and it's important to understand that there is one other aspect of all of this too, which is that there is a requirement for people to use a reasonable effort to learn English if it was not their native language, which is, I guess, reasonable, but we shouldn't compel people, particularly elderly people who might come to Australia, and that we can't expect them necessarily just to start using English per se, because the community is such, and that's where they feel safe, and that's where they feel comfortable. So maybe that's unrealistic. But certainly this notion about mutual respect, tolerance, and compassion for those in need is an important. But it's important. I understand that. But do we need to get people to sign a document to say that that's what they plan to do? People who are coming to Australia, one would expect the major majority of those people would understand that they're values that are worth implementing, that they're values that a community and a society need in order to function. Now, we can assume that from many of those countries in which people might come, those values may not be upheld. But we're certainly saying that they should be in this country. But the question I'm asking, though, and this is where I actually haven't got an answer, is it imperative that we ask people to fill out a document that states all of these things? Some of these things, I think, according to the right wing, are extremely woke. And one wonders whether or not these values will be implemented. It also goes on to say, making compliance with the value statement a visa condition will better reflect the expectation of the Australian people that visa holders conduct themselves in accordance with Australian values during their stay. Conduct constituting a breach of visa conditions may result in visa cancellation, and persons found in breach of those conditions may be required to leave the country. So, what does that mean then? Because I don't know, quite frankly. So, does it mean that this notion around a fair go, mutual respect, tolerance? So if you're not showing mutual respect to other people, which a lot of people on social media don't do, I hasten to add, and lots of Australians do, and a lot of politicians don't do, if you ever watch Question Time, and their tolerance and their compassion for those in need. So if their values, how do you define whether someone is or is not abiding by or in step with or doing what those particular values are suggesting that they should be doing? Because my argument would be that there'd be many Australians who should be removed from this country for not doing those things. So what does that mean? Now, I want you to be able to comment about this in the comment section below. Let me know what you think specifically about those values, and also what do you think about the Liberal Party moving further and further to the right, and what does that mean? And have we got a conflict here? So remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for notifications, that's really important. But what do you think is happening with regard to the Liberal Party? And if they adapt this Susan Lee draft that I've just discussed, does that mean then that that there's a contradiction between moving further to the right and accepting some of these things that is in Susan Lee's policy, which I would suggest are kind of woke? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section below. Take care, everybody.